Welcome to the StormchaserQ Show. I'm meteorologist Quincy Vagel, and this topic is going to be about dangers that storm chasers face while storm chasing, or just while driving in general. And I posed the question to the internet, and I got dozens of responses. So much that I actually want to go through a lot of different topics here. This may turn into a two-part video. I think I want to break it down into the non-weather issues first, and then get into more of the specifics with weather-related issues and then other storm chasers in a second part. And there could even be a third part and other parts that I'll discuss. But instead of discussing all of that, let me get into the two areas that were mentioned the most. And the first group I kind of lump into a category of other drivers and then road hazards. So you're driving, you might not necessarily be near a storm, but there's hazards that you encounter on the roadways, and then wildlife was mentioned quite a bit as well. So I do have a screen. I'm looking at some topics, some quotes, so you may see me kind of peering down. I'm not getting distracted from the video, I am focused. And we'll start off by, so other drivers and road hazards. One of the most commonly mentioned issues was rural intersections. So if you're not familiar with the plains or with storm chasing, a lot of times there's these roads that have an intersection and there's no signage, there's no stop sign, no yield sign, and why could this be an issue? Well, a lot of locals and farmers and other people in the area, they simply may not stop, especially if there's no stop sign. So that can be dangerous. You have a four-way intersection and you don't know who's stopping or who's coming. That could be an issue. But then there's the issue of just people that just blow through stop signs. Maybe they're not used to seeing other traffic around, or it could be a storm chaser that's just blowing through an intersection. So that could be definitely very dangerous. And unfortunately, there have been injuries and fatalities because of an issue like this at an intersection. And then the one that might be arguably the most dangerous and the most common is blocking overpasses. It's like an old wives' tale that if you park under an overpass, it is safer to be in that under an overpass with a tornado coming. It's really not true, because you can have wind funneling through or channeling through the underpass or through the overpass, debris coming through. But there are two situations in which we see a lot of people just park under overpasses. And unfortunately, if there is a tornado warning or a flood warning on your phone, all of a sudden you'll usually see a lot of drivers just go under an overpass. That's dangerous because you could block oncoming traffic, or if there is a tornado coming, you could block emergency response vehicles, law enforcement, or you could cause just a traffic jam. That could be a nightmarish issue. And then parking under an overpass when there's hail falling. I understand it's human nature. There's big ice balls falling out of the sky. I want to get under somewhere safe. But when a lot of people start doing this, all of a sudden it blocks the roadway, people can't get through. And what if there actually was a tornado coming? Or what if there was a major storm coming? There's no way for people to get out of there. And I actually had this happen to me this year. There was golf ball sized hail in the Texas Panhandle. I'm on I-40. All of a sudden, traffic comes to a grinding halt. People are parked under an overpass. There's even people in the median blocking traffic, people off the side of the road.
I'm going to try to get through this, but I can't because people have blocked the entire service road.
I barely managed to get through. And luckily for them, there was no potential for a tornado. It was just a hailstorm, but still that's dangerous. And then Mike Scantlin had a great quote here, paraphrasing a little bit, but he had an instance where there was traffic under an overpass blocking the right of way. And in 2015, there was a large tornado headed directly for their chase group. And then fortunately, they were just hit by the RFD, but the traffic was blocked and they couldn't get out of the way. Luckily, there was not a tornado, and he said it was nightmarish, as I said before. So that's something that a lot of storm chasers figuratively and literally might have nightmares about, is overpasses being blocked. Hazard lights. This was a very commonly mentioned issue and a little bit controversial. And I actually had to look up the laws a little bit, and I'm not an attorney, and laws vary by state. But for the most part, it is actually illegal or frowned upon to use hazard lights while driving. Now, in some states and in some areas, it's recommended to use hazard lights while driving at a slow speed. But as a general rule, if the weather conditions are so bad that you feel like you have to use hazard lights while driving, it is recommended that you pull over and not drive. And the hazard lights can lower visibility, distract drivers, can cause an issue there, which kind of relates back to high beam usage, and especially using high beams in rain. But oncoming traffic, someone has high beams on, they don't turn it off, and it could cause a situation where you could be temporarily blinded. So that's an issue. And then driving too fast with low visibility and heavy rain, but that's a little bit more of a weather-related issue that I may get into more later on. Looking at a screen while driving, and this happens all the time, even from non-storm chasers, people texting on their phones, looking at GPS, going to write a tweet while driving. That is an issue with distracted driving and issues there. Drunk drivers, especially storm chasers who drive a lot at night, usually they're driving to try to find a hotel or they're driving home. There's an increased potential for drunk drivers at night, especially on Friday and Saturday nights. So it's an issue that a lot of people have encountered. And then, again, this is a little bit more weather related, but small cars driving too fast down muddy or dirt roads. And then Ed Sweeney said he had an example where a full-size couch fell off the back of a pickup truck right in front of them while storm chasing. So I haven't had something like that happen to me while storm chasing, but there was one time I was on the freeway and then a grill just flew out of a pickup truck in front of me, and that could have caused a major accident. So things you might have not thought about while storm chasing, or couches and grills flying off trucks. And then road closures and construction. This could be an issue, especially if you're not expecting a road to be closed and there's a storm coming. I had a case in, I believe, 2015, so earlier in my storm chase career in South Dakota. There's a massive line of storms in MCS blowing toward I-90 at pretty close to highway speeds at about 70 miles an hour. I'm driving east, all of a sudden traffic grinds to almost a complete stop. There's one lane of traffic and everyone's driving very slow. But luckily that it was a short-lived construction area and we were able to just narrowly get ahead of the storm. But that could be an issue, especially if you're not expecting it. Potholes are an issue. Heard about chasers getting flat tires. I've lost hubcaps before hitting potholes, things you don't always think about while storm chasing. And then some people mentioned not being able to find a gas station or a rest stop. And the gas station thing is pretty serious. I'll leave your imagination to the works for the other part of that. But if you're out storm chasing, sometimes there's no gas station for 25, 50, or even more miles. If the nearest gas station is closed, or if the power's out and you're running low on gas, that could be a major issue. And then the other thing that was mentioned quite a bit was wildlife. Deer was the number one issue mentioned, and I can't tell you how many storm chasers I've known who've hit a deer or had a car damaged from deer. Myself, I've had basically 3 instances of having car damage while storm chasing. Only one was weather related and it was minor damage from hail, but I've had a deer total a car and I've had a deer seriously damage the front end of a car before. Moose was mentioned by a lot of people. Skunk was mentioned. And then this is something that happens a lot, especially in rural areas. If you're on a dirt road at night, you could have cattle grazing or cows or just wildlife that's dark. It might be hard to see, and you're on a dirt road, there's no lamppost, there's no light. You come up a hill and all of a sudden there's farm animals. That could be an issue. Someone mentioned wild pigs in Texas. We had an issue with a tortoise tearing a hole in the bottom of a car. So even I hadn't thought about that. I mean, I've seen turtles and stuff, but having a tortoise damage a car is an issue. Elk was mentioned, coyotes, and then Brian Miner said a rabid raccoon attacking a moving vehicle in broad daylight. So those are the most commonly mentioned issues. Look forward to a part 2 where I'll talk more about weather-related dangers and then storm chaser-related dangers coming up. But as always, you can follow me on Instagram and Twitter at StormchaserQ. If you have questions or topics that you'd like me to discuss on the StormchaserQ Show, go to quincyvagel.com/ask, or you can email me at stormchaserq@gmail.com. I'll talk to you soon.